Hello, Christ Church family. You know, it's been over a year since Julie and I have moved here, and gosh, it's been such a year. One of the first things that y'all did to help me get started was to hold several small group gatherings in different people's homes. This gave me a chance to get to know many of you on an individual level, gave you a chance to know me a little bit, and it also helped me get a sense of what the pressing issues are in our church where you were looking for leadership. One of the issues that came up early and came up often was the question about our Sunday morning schedule. Prior to my arrival, Christ Church decided to move from 4 worship services to 3, and so I came in as we were living into that new 3 worship schedule. It became very clear that there was a great deal of dissatisfaction with the way this arrangement was set up. And so we began to look at ways that we could hear more voices and get more input and make a final determination about what our Sunday schedule should be, whether we would leave it the way it is or make modifications. Prior to the pandemic, we had a plan to have those conversations. We started a survey that asked questions about the Sunday experience. We talked with leadership about it, and we were planning several small group gatherings where we could again talk and listen to each other because we wanted to have a decision made before school started this fall. Well, the pandemic changed a lot of that. We still took our survey, but we didn't get near the responses we were hoping to because we had to stop it early. While we were hoping for 400 responses, we got about 240. We didn't have the small group gatherings, but a decision still needed to be made. So I've looked at the survey data. I've talked one-on-one with several key leaders in the church, and I have visited with our senior staff to talk about the implications of the Sunday schedule with them. Based upon these conversations, it's my opinion that we need to go to 2 worship services, a traditional service at 8:30 and a blended service at 11 o'clock, and to set aside the time between 9:15 and 11 o'clock for discipleship and fellowship. Let me explain to you how I came to that conclusion. One of the things that came up in the small group meetings was just how important relationships are here in Christ Church. You know, great worship attracts people to Christ Church, but it's the relationships that are formed that keep them here. Almost every person talked about the friendships that they had, and that regardless of what was happening in worship or happening with music or happening with programming, it was their friendships that keep them connected to Christ Church. Going to this new schedule gives us more time for relationship building, which I think is one of our strengths. There were some insights from the survey data that I thought were helpful. Some of the things I noticed in looking at the data that we did receive is that 43% of those who responded prefer to worship at either 8:30 or 11 o'clock. 25% of the people who responded actually preferred a worship time of 10:30 or 10:45. Only 9% of the people who responded in the survey preferred a 9:30 worship time. And it's even though 12% of respondents said that the 9:30 service was their principal service. The other thing we learned from that survey is that the worship time is not the primary driver for why people choose a service. The first and second reasons for people choosing a service are first the sermon, and second, the style of music. And finally, I learned from talking to senior staff that our present schedule has had a really devastating impact upon our discipleship ministries. In addition to adult Sunday school classes being split and having to decide between worship and Sunday school, our children's and our student ministries have been particularly hard hit. In our children's ministries, our attendance on Sunday morning dropped by 38%. We went from running 100 children to running 62. We also lost 53% of our Sunday morning adult volunteers. We lost 16 out of 30 volunteers for the Sunday school hour. Student ministries was also particularly hard hit. We had a 35% decrease in the number of students who participate in the Sunday morning breakfast, going from 60 to 40. We lost 60% of our adult volunteers on Sunday morning, losing 9 out of 15. And we also have seen a decrease of about 30% in the numbers of students actually participating in worship. It's for these reasons that I think that the best long-term decision for our church is to go forward with a 2 worship service schedule. We can't continue to allow our students and our children's discipleship ministries to suffer. Jesus was very clear about our responsibility in caring for young ones in faith formation. And if we were to continue this practice, I think we would be stepping away from Christ's call to disciple the little ones. So what's going to happen when we make this change? Well, one of the things we hope to see is that in the time between 9:15 and 9:30 before Sunday school starts, people will begin to make connections with each other and have time to form relationships. We also expect to see very strong discipleship ministries with plenty of time for teaching and for questioning by providing an entire hour for the Sunday school period from 9:30 to 10:30. Finally, from 10:30 to 11, it's a great time for fellowship. Our common area can be filled and people can make friendships and renew friendships and again build those relationships that are the strongest aspect of Christ Church. We're going to continue to work towards excellence in our traditional service at 8:30. In the 11 o'clock service, we're going to continue to develop the best of contemporary and traditional music so that that blended service is a meaningful experience for everybody. We believe that in doing this, we'll continue to draw new families to Christ Church, and we'll create a worship experience that is exciting for our student ministries so that we can continue to enjoy their participation in worship as well. Our vision for Christ Church is better worship, stronger discipleship, and greater fellowship. We believe that this model will allow for more opportunities for fellowship and spiritual growth. We're also going to add a large group gathering for adult discipleship, which will make it easier for adults to connect when they come to Christ Church for the first time. This will be a group that meets every week that anyone can come into, and we believe that this large discipleship group will eventually give birth to several smaller groups, but it'll be a better connection point for members of our church. We want to maximize the pastoral experience people have from Christ Church as well. Right now, on our current schedule, our pastors don't have time to stop and talk. We're running from service to service to service. And when that happens, we don't get to pay attention to our Sunday school ministries, and we don't get to just sit and get to know you in between the service schedule. That's a loss for all of us, I think, when we don't have the time to talk to each other. The other thing we've learned that is if we take this step and we form more adult discipleship groups, we'll have more members in small groups. We've learned during this pandemic that people that stay in a small group get better pastoral care from their church because they have people who know them checking on them and reporting back to the church when there's a need. I want to thank you for all of your input and all of your feedback. And I ask that you thoughtfully and prayerfully accept this change and see what the Lord does with it. I'm absolutely convinced that when the time comes that our church is fully restored from this pandemic season, our best days truly are ahead of us. We have the best lay leadership that I can see in the Texas Annual Conference. We have an incredibly talented staff, and the relationships and the friendships that exist in Christ Church are going to just multiply and expand so that our impact in this part of the world will continue to be substantial and will continue to glorify God.